Have you ever had that feeling where you're just drowning in information, but somehow you feel less informed than ever?
All the time.
You look around and it seems like convenience is sort of quietly replacing curiosity.
Right.
And that gets to the really profound question that you send over in these sources, which is, why does it feel like independent critical thought is just quietly fading?
It's definitely more than a feeling. And, the sources make a really compelling case that this isn't just random. It's not a coincidence.
Well,
This decline in our ability to really, synthesize and challenge information, what some people are calling a cognitive vulnerability, it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen by accident.
absolutely. So this deep dive is really our mission to unpack the mechanics of that shift.
Yeah.
We're going to explore the systemic pressures, the tech forces, even the psychological shortcuts that are driving all this,
And crucially, how to fight back.
and how we can fight back and reclaim our own independent thought. Okay, let's unpack this.
So where do we start?
I think we have to start with the sheer volume, the cognitive noise we're all living in.
It's the foundational problem, really. It's the absolute loss of the space to think.
Yeah.
Historically, information was a resource. You had to go find it. You'd sit quietly with a newspaper or a
I took
journal.
the word for it.
You did. Now, we are living in the loudest moment in human history. I mean, not just in sound, but in pure informational input.
I remember reading in your sources that we get hit with more data in a single day than what previous generations saw in a week,
Oh.
or even longer. It's
Right.
overwhelming.
It is. It's overwhelming by design. And that volume, it completely changes how our brains have to process reality.
Which brings us right to our first big idea, the cognitive cost of overload. Let's talk about this from a systems analysis perspective.
Okay.
The analogy in the sources comes from these huge autonomous systems like data processing centers or complex navigation AIs. What happens when any system, a computer or a brain, gets totally flooded with inputs?
It stops.
It stops careful processing.
Right. It stops the careful, energy-intensive work, and it just relies on shortcuts. And that's not a failure of the system. It's not stupidity. It's adaptation. It's survival.
And our brain is no different.
Exactly. You flood it with inputs, and it's forced away from deep analysis. It just shifts toward quick, surface-level pattern recognition. It's the brain going into its most energy-efficient mode just to cope.
So the brain's adapting to survive this information flood, but then those same shortcuts become, I don't know, inefficient, maybe even dangerous when you're dealing with modern complexity.
What's fascinating here is the evolutionary mismatch. I mean, for hundreds of thousands of years, our shortcuts were brilliant survival tools.
Like what?
Well, if everyone in your tribe believed a certain berry was poisonous, you believed it instantly. It was smart. Consensus, reputation, ubiquity, those were really good proxies for truth.
But today, that consensus can be completely engineered in a moment.
It can. Those ancient shortcuts, the ones that read ubiquity as validity, they're now being exploited. Weaponized, even. Something can be totally fabricated, a complete lie, but it can be seen by millions of people in minutes. We used to say a lie circles the globe before truth gets its shoes on.
Right.
Now it circles the globe in, 6 seconds?
And your brain, because it doesn't have the time or energy for a deep dive, just sees that repetition and says, oh, this must be important, this must be true.
It starts to feel real. You see a claim dozens of times from slightly different angles, and your brain's default is, well, if it's everywhere, there must be something to it.
Which is why really smart people can end up believing some, frankly, nonsensical things.
Yes. They haven't seen the actual evidence, they've just seen the widespread repetition of the claim.
So that overload is the spark. But the brain's wiring is what dictates the response. You mentioned the two modes of thought. How does that play out here?
Right. So you can think of it as instinctive processing versus deliberate analysis. Instinctive is your fast mode. It's automatic, it's emotional, it's super quick and energy efficient.
That's your gut reaction. Hitting the brakes, judging someone's mood.
Exactly. It runs on patterns. And it's our default setting, especially when you're stressed or tired,
And the other mode?
is deliberate analysis, your slow mode. This is effortful. It's analytical. It's what you need for complex problem solving. It weighs evidence, it handles nuance, but it burns a lot of energy.
And the problem is, this always-on high-speed world we live in keeps almost everyone trapped in that instinctive fast mode.
Constantly. There's no time or space to switch gears.
And when that instinctive mode is running the show, we get really vulnerable to something we've all heard of: confirmation bias.
And this is where that adaptation becomes a kind of self-imprisonment. The instinctive brain, it hates uncertainty. So once it forms an opinion, usually based on an emotional reaction or some mental template,
It protects it.
it does everything possible to protect that conclusion.
So it's not like a conscious choice to be stubborn. Your brain is literally filtering reality to keep things consistent.
It is. It's protecting the comfort of being certain. It's why you can read 10 articles that support what you already believe, and then you just instantly dismiss the one or two that challenge it.
Even if those challenging articles are, better researched.
Much better researched. Your brain isn't looking for truth in that moment. It's looking for stability. And the more emotionally attached you are to a belief, the more convinced you become, even when you see contradictory facts. It's an automatic defense.
Wow. That's a powerful trap. So, okay, if that's what's happening inside our heads, let's talk about the outside forces, the ones that are actively pushing us to that survival mode.
Right.
Let's pivot to part two, because these systemic pressures, the systems we live and work in, they seem almost designed to amplify this need for conformity.
The sources are pretty blunt about this. They argue our major modern systems were optimized not for independent thinkers, but for compliant, predictable participants.
You see this so clearly in our institutions. Let's take education. The whole structure was basically built during the industrial age. And what did that era need?
It needed reliable factory workers, people who followed instructions, showed up on time, and, didn't question the process.
And that mindset gets baked into schools that reward conformity, right? Memorization, covering the material as fast as possible.
It's about coloring inside the lines. The whole system is set up to reward regurgitation, finding the one right answer.
And what that teaches you, subtly, is that deep understanding is less important than just getting through the material.
Exactly. Taking the time to really wrestle with a complex idea or to challenge the textbook, that slows the whole class down. It's penalized. The hidden curriculum is don't think too much, just absorb and move on.
And that pattern just gets amplified when you enter the working world. The corporate cliff, as the sources call it.
Yeah, the pressure to conform just skyrockets because now dissent carries a personal risk.
A real risk.
In a high-stakes corporate meeting, questioning the consensus can get you labeled as difficult. It can affect your promotion, your opportunities, your job security. Fear is an incredibly effective tool for control.
We've all heard the story or seen it. A really smart person is in a meeting. They know a project is flawed. They see the huge gap in the plan, but they stay silent.
Completely silent.
Because they're afraid of being shut down or just upsetting the harmony of the room.
And that silence is how a bad idea gets the green light. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains how these incredibly smart organizations can make catastrophically dumb decisions.
So critical thinking isn't just an intellectual skill.
Not at all. It requires integrity. It requires courage. And when questioning becomes risky, people they stop doing it. And that's how whole societies can fall into these patterns of, unthinking compliance.
But hold on, isn't some conformity necessary? I mean, for society to function, we all agree to stop at red lights. Where's the line between that kind of healthy compliance and a critical failure of thought?
I think the line is crossed when the goal shifts from solving the problem to protecting the group's comfort. Traffic laws are about a shared reality we all benefit from. The corporate cliff is about protecting a shared delusion. When you refuse to say something you know is true because the consequences are just too high, that's the moment independent thought dies.
And just as all these systemic forces were pushing us one way, modern technology, specifically social media, came along and was like pouring rocket fuel on the whole thing.
Total rocket fuel. These platforms are engineered brilliantly, but their one and only goal is to maximize engagement.
Right. And engagement means clicks and time on site.
And time on site is driven overwhelmingly by emotion, by outrage, conflict, tribalism, and extreme positions. The algorithm is a machine that literally does not care about truth or nuance. It only cares about keeping your eyes on the screen.
This is why it's so much more insidious than just a simple echo chamber.
Oh, much more. It's an environment that's been specifically engineered using behavioral psychology to manage your emotions.
Manage your emotions. That's a powerful way to put it.
It feeds you exactly what it knows will trigger a strong dopamine hit, usually by confirming your beliefs and stoking your anger toward people who disagree. It makes you feel informed. It makes you feel righteous.
But you're trading real analysis for this managed emotional state.
Precisely. You are not thinking. You are being managed. It's a feedback loop optimized for clicks. The platforms push extreme voices. They reduce complex issues to simple slogans, and that creates the perfect engine for collective stupidity.
Okay, so if the systems around us And even our own brains are sort of working against us. Let's get to part 3, the internal revolution. How do we even begin to reclaim our minds?
It has to begin with relearning how to slow down.
Just slow down.
Deep thinking cannot be rushed. In fact, speed is the enemy of wisdom. The clearest thinkers are almost never the fastest responders. They're the ones who are comfortable saying, I don't know yet, or I need to sit with this for a while.
That means you have to be radically selective about what you let in.
You do. The advice in your sources is pretty clear on this. Read less, but read more carefully.
Spend an hour wrestling with one complex essay instead of just skimming 10 headlines.
Exactly. Value depth over coverage. It's a total paradigm shift.
And we also have to face that other barrier, groupthink. You said it takes integrity and courage, which are, rarer than just raw intelligence.
Groupthink is what happens when our desire to belong, to maintain harmony, just overrides our desire for truth.
Yeah.
It makes very smart people silence their own doubts because challenging the group it's terrifying. You're not just risking an argument, you're risking social alienation.
And that gets to the deeper emotional barrier here. Critical thinking isn't just hard work intellectually. It can be genuinely emotionally threatening.
This raises an important question, right? Why do people actively avoid thinking deeply about their core beliefs?
Lie.
Because those beliefs are tied to our identity, to our tribe, our community, our sense of meaning. So questioning a core belief can feel like you're questioning who you are. And that feeling of existential instability is terrifying.
So to avoid that terror, we just stay in the bubble, where everything confirms what we already think.
That's the prison. And to escape it, you have to cultivate a willingness to be wrong. You have to be okay with feeling uncertain and uncomfortable as you let go of old ideas. That discomfort, that's the price of real growth.
So practically speaking, what are the actionable tools? How do we start this internal revolution today?
The first tool is exposure. Deliberately expose yourself to well-argued perspectives you completely disagree with.
Not to attack them?
No, not to attack them. To genuinely understand their logic. There's a rule of thumb. If you can't state your opponent's best argument better than they can, you don't actually understand the issue yet.
That is a powerful self-check. What's next?
Second is self-awareness. Just regularly ask yourself, what's influencing my opinion right now? Is this conviction based on evidence I've actually looked at, or is it based on how this belief makes me feel about my tribe?
And am I open to being wrong?
That's the most important one. And finally, the third tool is cultivating what the sources call inner stillness. This is the radical act of refusing to be managed. It just means carving out moments where you are not consuming information, you are not reacting, you're just sitting with a question and allowing clarity to emerge. In this high-noise world, that stillness is where wisdom actually grows.
It's the only time that slow, deliberate part of your brain can actually take the wheel.
That's it.
When you really commit to thinking clearly and consistently and with courage, you become harder to deceive, harder to control. You become free.
And that freedom isn't having no constraints. It's about consciously choosing which constraints you accept and which you reject based on principles you've actually thought through.
Right.
So we've traced this whole journey, from the information overload to our brain's shortcuts to the systemic push for conformity and the emotional management by algorithms.
And the ultimate realization here seems to be that clear thinking is contagious. When you, as one person, refuse to get swept up in the hysteria, or you admit you're uncertain instead of faking it, it gives other people around you permission to slow down and think too.
So we'll leave you with one final thought to build on all this. The ultimate measure of mental strength isn't winning a debate or proving how right you are.
Or is it?
It's the ability to hold two opposing, complex ideas in your mind at the same time without panicking. That's how you move beyond the simple, safe binaries, the easy us versus them, and toward a true, nuanced understanding of reality.
Stay curious, and above all, keep thinking. You're awake now.